Ask not for we all be can do for you. Ask what you can do for we all be. Brother Roland, are you there?
Yeah.
We're proud to have on once again Brother Roland Sheppard, one of the last living witnesses of the execution, the crucifixion of Brother Malcolm X on February 21st, 1965 at the Audubon Ballroom, and also a journalist and promoted the militant, right? The socialist militant. Is that correct?
I was, at that time, I was associated with the Socialist Workers' Party at the time in the early 60s in New York, and I was selling their paper, The Militant.
All right, cool. I will make sure I don't want to get wrong with the other people that didn't like Malcolm. We'll talk about that later. So it's an honor to have you on once again, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Before we get too deep into the Malcolm X assassination, what you know, and all the stuff that needs to be talked about, I'd talk to you about the first time. Can you tell us about the first time you met Dick Gregory in terms of Malcolm X?
Well, he was at the Audubon Ballroom, and Malcolm was talking about people people that were in the audience, and he says, and because Dick Gregory had just written the book, Nigger, and which he said to his mother, whenever you hear that word, you know they're advertising my book. Malcolm said, and now I'd like to introduce my favorite nigger, and he says, Dick Gregory. And Dick Gregory, come on up here. And they were friendly on the stage, and Dick Gregory talked, and he asked, gave the mic to Dick Gregory. And Dick Gregory said, Malcolm, a lot of what you say I agree with. But, as far as giving up my chitlins, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give up my ham hocks. I'm not going to do that. He just made it laughing. It was kind of funny. It was good-natured humor.
That's cool. So, also, I want to talk to you about your thoughts about Brother Malcolm, because you worked with him. I mean, you was there at a lot of his key meetings and speeches that he made. And I just wanted to get your thoughts about him as a person before we move into the assassination part and the aftermath.
Well, he was the most honest mass leader that I ever, of my generation, as far as I was concerned. He always seemed, even when he was in the nation, if he didn't, he always spoke what he thought to be the truth, or what was true. And if he wasn't sure of anything, he would just say the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, rather than say it himself. And, that struck me. His honesty and his humanity. You could see him chuckling with the audience. He wasn't, like King spoke to the audience, like a minister, a preacher talks to his congregation. Malcolm talked, and it was a conversation with the people in the audience at the same time. He would make reflections, and he would give that, and the audience would laughing, knowing that a good one was coming up. But it was his speeches were almost like a dialogue with the audience, which a very powerful type of public speaking. And he didn't speak down to anybody. He wasn't from the preacher from on high. And that impressed me. And he could speak to the common man. In fact, he enjoyed that, because one time after a meeting, the hate gang meeting, and when he spoke about the hate gangs, just when he got back from Africa, he spoke on the subject at the Militant Labor Forum, because that was the headlines in all the papers, and he debunked. He says, part of the thing was, I don't know why there aren't any hate gangs, because of what was happening.
Right.
It was a whole distortion. After the meeting, he was in a car, and I was on defense duty, and So I had to stay with the car until Malcolm left. And James Chavez is in the car, and a garbage truck had just pulled up before Malcolm got in his car, and one of the garbage men recognized Malcolm and said to the other garbage man, "I'm going to talk to the general." You know, in those exact words. He went over and talked to Malcolm X. They were talking, and, you know, now it's the meeting went on long, and, you know, there was a long question and answer discussion, and then an informal discussion afterwards. So it was getting kind of late, but now it's getting towards 1 o'clock in the morning, and Malcolm, I'm on the defense guard, so I got to stay there. Malcolm's talking to the guy 15, 20 minutes.
Wow.
And I looked at James Chavez, and James says, he just, you know, verbally said to me through the car glass, you know, he says, "That's Malcolm." And so we stayed there till about 1:15. Then I was able to go home.
Oh, wow. Do you remember the first time you met him? I mean, do you remember the first time you ever seen him or talked to him?
That was the first time I had a conversation with him, yeah.
You know what year it was that you had the conversation with him?
What?
What year it was when you
1964. He'd just come back from his first trip to Africa.
Now let's talk about the day of the assassination. I know you got a vivid memory of what happened that day, and you could tell us what went down.
Well, that day I was selling papers out in front of the hall, and I would sell almost to one paper, socialist newspaper, to almost, you know, about 1/3 of the audience. And Malcolm's people all had subscriptions. And then, you know, when you count that most people came as a group, they were all reading the paper, and you know, they had known me at that time, and I could sell more papers than other people who were selling papers outside could give their papers away. And on that day, though, Malcolm would always talk to me before he went inside to a meeting and ask how everything was going and stuff and so forth and so forth. And I would tell him if, you know, what was in the paper that day and so forth. And on the day of the assassination, he came out of a car all by himself, either a cab or a car, but he was all by himself. And he was extremely nervous, and he said to me, "I can't stop today, Roland. I have to get inside." And he looked very nervous because nobody was with him, you know, which was very, very strange. And then I went in, and the next thing that happened was Gene Roberts, who was a bossy agent, the Bureau of Special Services investigative unit of the undercover cops of the New York Police Department, the guy who later surfaced as the bossy agent Gene Roberts, and he surfaced in them as giving testimony against the Black Panthers at a trial later, a couple of years later. He came up to me as soon as I came into the ballroom, and he walked up to me and said, "Roland, you're not sitting where you usually sit," which should have been audience left, and sort of in the first or second row. And he said, "You're sitting over here today." I thought that was kind of strange because every time, you know, bunch of meetings before that, almost every meeting before that, I sat down on the first or second row on the left, you know, audience left. And this time I was in the front row on audience right. And I thought that was a little bit strange. So I looked over, and there were some people in the hall, and I saw three people standing towards the center in the front, and one guy was a lot larger than the other guys, and because I wanted to see who was sitting in my seat, which would have been further to their left if I had sat in my regular seat. So, I saw the guy. And then the meeting filled up. Benjamin X spoke and introduced Malcolm. Then about the midway back on audience left, all the way the first, right by the aisle to the before the wall. Two people stood up and said, "Get your hand out of my pocket." Malcolm was saying, "Now, calm down, brothers." And all of a sudden, this guy, who I recognized later because I saw his picture, as Thayer, went running down the side, shooting in the air, and going out the exit. So then I thought it was over. But that was the diversion. Because I thought, the shooting was over. All of a sudden, the shooting rang out. And everybody, including myself, hit the ground. And I looked up at Malcolm. And as I was looking up, he was staring straight down. I tried to look over there as a sudden flash in the left corner of my eye came out on a loud noise and a flash similar to a shotgun. People used to hunt with shotguns in my hometown. And Malcolm fell back about, straight back. And he was a big man, so he fell about 15 feet back. And the shooting continued for a bit longer, and all the chairs were flopping down as people were chasing people, and people were running out of the place. And it was, cacophony. Now, one thing I have to explain is just before the meeting started, Gene Roberts went to the back of the room. And he was originally right in front of the room when Benjamin 2X was speaking, and he was in front of the guys who I had seen. He was just a little bit to the right of the three individuals I had saw standing and talking in the front of the room. So he knew who those people were because he was there. But then, before Malcolm spoke, he went to the back for some reason. So there was no guard there. And I later learned that, he was in the back of the room. But why did he leave? And, all the accounts say that Roberts went up to give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but the first person was Yuri Kochiyama, who was in the Organization of Afro-American Unity and was a nurse. And she got up to the stage immediately and tried to give him artificial respiration. I suspect that Gene Roberts, who was had gone to a police academy and so forth, was checking to see if Malcolm was alive. He wasn't giving him mouth-to-mouth.
You think that Gene Roberts was directly involved in the assassination plot then? Was he a co-conspirator in your mind?
When all the facts came out, I assume that, yeah.
Okay, now tell us about, the aftermath, you going to the police station trying to identify the people who killed Malcolm.
Yeah, well, first of all, as I was going out, I knew the guards and everything else like that, and they proudly told me they had caught two people. And the press had said two people, and then the press changed it to one person was caught. And even the captain of police at the time when he was interviewed said two people had been caught and were under questioning. One was in the hospital, one was at the station. When I got called in for questioning by the Harlem police about the assassination. They were asking if I knew these individuals, and they showed me photos of people that I knew were in Malcolm's organization, others that I knew to be in the Nation of Islam, but they also showed me the photo of the big, the larger man that I had seen when I looked over to see who was sitting over on the left side of the audience, for me to be moved to the right side. And I saw that guy's picture. And I didn't want to identify the people to the police, and I assumed it was the Red Squad that was interviewing me, which was another term would be Bureau of Special Services, bossy. Mm-hmm. So I walked to go to the bathroom, the men's room, and lo and behold, you know who walks out?
Who?
The picture, the guy who I recognized in the picture, the photo the police had just given me, who I recognized as being in the center, and probably had the shotgun or was with the people who had the shotgun, walked out of the men's room and across the barricade or the little tiny low fence before the secretarial pool and went into an office in the police station.
Oh, wow.
So I said, well, now, first of all, I didn't want to identify any Malcolm people, and I didn't want to identify him because I didn't think I'd make it to the IRT station if I did. Because I immediately knew that the cops definitely were involved, or the government was involved in the assassination. And I didn't know who it was beforehand, but from that point on, I knew the government was involved.
I mean, how did it make you...
The only thing I said to the cops is I said, all black people look the same, and they released me. They nodded their heads in agreement and released me.
How did it make you feel to know that your government could be involved like that, like the police agencies and whatnot could be involved in killing, like you said, the most gifted mass leader of your generation?
Oh, I felt bad about Malcolm X getting killed. I was really devastated. I mean, it haunts me. The image of him dying haunts me. Comes into me, especially vivid in my mind every February. But when Roberts came to light in the Panther trial as an FBI agent, the picture began to unfold for me of what was involved. And then I saw years later, 1987 documentary on Malcolm X by Dan Rather. He explained that somebody high up in the Nation of Islam, the FBI had somebody high up in the Nation of Islam that gave Elijah Muhammad, letters with forging Malcolm's signature, provocative letters. They were trying to fan the flames of discontent. I think they felt they could, with the rhetoric of the Muslims at the time, it made it easy for the FBI to frame up the Nation of Islam for the murder. I thought maybe it could possibly, because I knew of an incident in Boston, and I also had seen people who the meeting was just about to get over, and I was outside, and a car pulled up and asked me when the meeting was going to go over. I went over. They motioned for me to come over. I came over, and I saw him slide. It looked like a shotgun in the back seat. And they said, when's the meeting going to get over? And they all had NOI pins. That doesn't mean they were NOI,
Exactly.
And I told them the meeting had about another half hour to go, so they pulled away. I immediately told Reuben Francis, and about 8 or 9 guys came running out, and I told them it had New Haven plates and so forth on the car. And they seemed to know the individuals or the car. But, so I thought, who killed them? Maybe the government, because, people get assassinated. Lumumba got assassinated, Medgar got shot, And when the mosque got bombed, I knew that Malcolm X's people didn't have the capacity to bomb that mosque. And, that's when I began to, it had to be the government.
Now, you talked about, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then Carl Iban's book came out.
The Judas Factor, right?
The Judas Factor. And everything fell into place. I knew that Malcolm X was more than likely going to speak at the first march on Washington against the Vietnam War. He was the first major leader to oppose the war in Vietnam. And he had gotten the African states to criticize the racism in the United States for the first time. And so, they recognize that power. But then Carl Evans explains how Bossie coordinated all the spy agencies, and that 2 members of Bossie later on surfaced as Watergate plumbers. And, Zach Kondo came out, and he writes down that Ali was considered to be most important, to be an FBI informant.
Is it John Ali, right, the Secretary of the Nation?
John Ali. And we also now know that John Ali met with Thayer the night before the assassination. So you start to put all the stuff together, and you get the picture. Now, what's the motive for Malcolm X to be killed by the government? First of all, he was friendly with Che Guevara. He was going to speak at the 2 weeks after the assassination. He had been scheduled to speak at the Bandung Third World Conference with Ben Bella and Che Guevara. And I know they had met because after a very successful meeting where both speak from Zanzibar Revolution and others, James Chavez showed me, they were all happy. It was a very good meeting. And James Chavez showed me a cigar Che Guevara had given him. And I tried to grab the cigar from him, saying, "You don't smoke, give it to me." And it fell on the floor, and we were sort of just tussling around on the floor, play tussling, trying to get the cigar. He could have really kicked my butt if he wanted to. He was very skilled in martial arts. But I could tell that he didn't want that cigar to smoke. That cigar was a symbol of a bond that Malcolm and his closest followers had gotten with Che Guevara when they met with Che Guevara, and Che Guevara was at the UN, and at the meeting, Che Guevara had given a message to the meeting. And, so there's two factors, the international factor and the factor that he was opposing the war in Vietnam. Now, him speaking at the first mass anti-war demonstration would have had given the anti-war movement a different character than just a student movement. It would have been a very powerful statement. And a lot of things were going to happen. And we also know that he was planning on touring the campuses in the coming year to talk to students because he felt they were the most receptive to his ideas. So, all those factors definitely gave the United States motive to assassinate Malcolm X.
I was looking at a documentary. I like all the stuff you're saying because I saw a news clip of James Farmer, the founder of CORE. He was talking to the news media. He said it was a conspiracy, international implications, to assassinate Malcolm X because he said he was at the White House and President James Lyndon B. Johnson asked him, did they ever find out who killed that Malcolm fellow? What you know about that? So he was very interested in finding out, we all know about Lyndon B. Johnson now. His history and stuff like that, how he rose to power. But it was interesting that he was curious to get the opinion of James Farmer about, did they ever find out? And also I heard in the documentary that Malcolm actually contacted the State Department and said that his life was in danger. He thought that somebody was trying to kill him because on the African trip he got poisoned several times, and he was denied interest or access to countries like France, I believe. So
a week just before the assassination. He was denied entry to France because France didn't want him killed on French soil.
So everybody knew that was going to happen, right? I mean, it sounded like everybody knew they was in on it.
Well, he had said to me that he had to, his biggest effort would be to stay alive for about 6 months, he says, because my ideas had evolved faster than my people, and I have to build an organization on what I'm thinking right now. And so he was feverishly trying to do that at the time because he felt if he built an organization, he'd be more dangerous dead and alive, and that at that precise moment he was more dangerous alive than dead to the powers that be.
Wow, that's a powerful statement to make. And I'm asking this though, because you understand, you knew Malcolm, you actually met with him and talked with him and organized with him. Why was Malcolm was great at reading the audience? Like you said, he was great at talking with the crowd, not talking to the crowd. But he couldn't read the folks in his own inner circle, the folks that ended up betraying him, like even his family members, people he brought into the nation. Why was he so great at reading the crowd, but he couldn't read his own circle of people around him?
He complained to Louis Lomax about him having problems with the minister, and he thinks it's John Ali. But they at one time they were all close friends. You can't be accusing or thinking about people close to you. Otherwise, you would that would destroy the organization. He could talk to a crowd because the crowd was his people, the common person, the person in the street. And he was giving them new information. And he was very skilled at that. And it's not a question of reading the crowd, is that he didn't talk down to the crowd. And the crowd responded to that. He talked straight to them. He didn't separate himself from them.
But his background as a hustler, in his earlier days, be able to be a hustler, you got to be able to read people around you. You got to understand, is this person friend or foe or sheep or wolf? Why wasn't he able to do that in his inner circle, though? That's what I'm saying. Why was he able to see the people who was running the game on him in terms of trying to destroy what he was trying to build? In your opinion, I know you can't talk for Malcolm, but in your opinion, why was that? Because you got hindsight now.
I don't know.
That's an honest question. That's an honest answer. I
really don't know. I mean, when the Prospects for Freedom speech in 1965 at the Militant Labor Forum, I organized the defense for that meeting, and I had a bunch of people on stage, and I talked to James Sheppard about how we were organizing the defense of the meeting, and we said the first, from past history, if there's any sign of a commotion in the crowd, because a commotion creates a diversion, and that's what they do when people assassinate. They create a diversion in one spot so that other people could carry it out. At the first sign, any type of diversion will have people immediately stand in front of Malcolm. Which is common sense.
Yes.
We knew that. And James Sheppard, who was in charge of Malcolm's security, knew that I had said that to him and how we were organizing the defense. That the first sign of disruption, I would have people go in front of Malcolm regardless of what happened. And I had all white people on the stage because I didn't think anybody would shoot Malcolm and kill white people at the same time.
I like the way you think. You think like a fox. But why was it the opposite done on the day he got killed? Did anybody run towards Malcolm, or they ran away towards the crowd?
I don't know where the people ran. I looked up, I saw Malcolm, I was in shock and horrified. And I looked back, and all the seats were gone, and the crowd had disappeared. Except I saw Gene Roberts in the back at that time. And at that time, I wondered how did he get back there? You know?
I mean, that's amazing, though, because you talked to James Sheppard, and you told him, like, the police, even when I think about that, I'm thinking about Ronald Reagan, how he almost got assassinated. How, although you had folks running away or running towards the would-be assassins, you also had people trying to cover the president. And it goes back to what you were saying. If a commotion happened, whatever, you got to be somebody protecting the main person. And I'm saying, like, it's, it lets you know it was a conspiracy.
I always wondered about that because, I knew James Sheppard pretty well.
You don't think he was, like, on the take too, right? Or you think he was up, sincere guy?
He
Or do you
was a good speaker.
Okay.
And he gave a couple of classes to the Socialist Workers' Party. We used to call them educationals and would be after a branch meeting. And he gave a class, although he was surprised one time when the women comrades got a little bit irritated with him because he was saying sexist remarks. And then he was surprised that he was getting criticized for it. And then all of a sudden his eyes lit up, and he realized that, he says, wait a moment, you have that pamphlet with a woman from the Revolutionary Brigades with a machine gun, a pamphlet on Cuba with that picture of a black woman with a machine gun. And he laughed at that point, and he realized, I stepped into the big money, He, as far as I know, he spoke at the Militant Labor Forum after Malcolm's assassination and gave a very good speech. And after the assassination, Peter Cameo, who had written a good book on Black Reconstruction, had gotten into a lot of conversations and dinner meetings with James Shabazz. And Shabazz told him that he felt that leaders shouldn't lead or shouldn't be seen and go underground because they just assassinate leaders. So I don't know whether at that point I don't know why that wasn't already arranged. If there's any commotion to have people in front of Malcolm, nobody was on the stage. Nobody was in front of the stage. That was disappeared.
I was looking at like the Nation of Islam now. I want to talk about what you think about their true level of involvement was in this assassination. But I was looking at the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan. He always got a tight, security. The Fruit of Islam, they always surrounding him. They're always doing body checks and whatnot in the mosque, and when he's speaking, they're always making sure nobody, has anything to harm the minister. And I was just thinking, because Louis Farrakhan, or Louis X at the time, I believe, he came out of Mosque Number 7, and so some other people.
No, he came out of the Boston Mosque.
But he was under Malcolm, though. Malcolm was his mentor at one point. I know he's from Boston too. I know Louis Farrakhan is from Boston. He
was very close with Malcolm.
And what are your thoughts about their involvement? You think that the Nation of Islam in a way contributed? I know he was interviewed some years ago, and he said he might have been complicit in creating the atmosphere.
The rhetoric they used made it easy for the FBI and the government to assassinate Malcolm X.
Okay. But they're not the masterminds. What you saying? They're not the masterminds behind the assassination of Malcolm X, though.
What?
They're not the masterminds. Like I know you could participate. You could be a pawn, and you could be, you have people could participate in certain different levels of a quote unquote conspiracy.
Well, I'll give you an example. At the same time of Malcolm X's assassination, people from a Black Nationalist organization got arrested for conspiring to blow up the Statue of Liberty. And what had really happened was that an FBI informant or agent, really doesn't matter which, had called the Black nationalist group on the rhetoric. He said, "You guys are just talk. Why don't we do something and bomb the Statue of Liberty?" And they were all laughing. "We don't have the stuff to do that," and stuff like that. And he says, "I can get the bombs and I can get everything. All you have to do is meet me." So he comes up in a cab. They get into the cab and then get arrested for conspiring to bomb the Statue of Liberty.
They still doing that. Liberty City 7, for example, in Miami.
Yeah.
Provocateurs, the agents with the means and resources, and you targeting poor, organizations and poor people in general. Like the war on drugs.
They were fanning the flames of discontent that even Dan Rather admitted that, probably the guy who turned out to be high up in the Nation of Islam was John Ali. Giving Elijah Muhammad letters that were forged, that were reportedly signed by Malcolm, which weren't.
But William Sullivan,
just to fan the flames of discontent.
William Sullivan, one of the top 3 of the FBI at one time, he admitted to writing letters like that. Like he suggested Dr. King should kill himself, and he remember writing letters to the members of the Black Panther Party about so and so don't like you and stuff, trying to stir up stuff within the organizations. And before he could testify, of course, he was killed in a quote-unquote hunting accident. He was mistaken for a deer. But he had a guilty conscience towards the end. He wanted to testify and let people know that the FBI did play a part. 'Cause I remember reading that they was mailing, Black Panther coloring books to white people in the different cities and saying this is what Black Panthers think. And they had these coloring books came from the Black Panther Party. But it really was created by the FBI. So, I mean, I think people need to wake up because they still doing that stuff today. Like, I talk about the Liberty City 7, and people forget about these things. Like, it's so many, like Jose Padilla, the guy who they claim will blow up against the Sears Tower or something like that. I mean, these people are denied their human rights and civil liberties, and they put them in a goulash somewhere, and people forget about them. Because we all are really targets of this type of fascism.
Yeah, like they used the carrot and the stick with the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
The carrot was the, like, free breakfast program, food stamp type stuff, where you get a percentage of the money.
Mm-hmm.
And the stick was assassination.
Mm.
And they fanned the flames of disagreement within the Black Panther Party and exasperated the factionalism that was going on. So much so that Kathleen Cleaver and the rest of the people in Oakland said that Geronimo Pratt wasn't at a meeting with them when a police officer got killed in Los Angeles. They denied him. They sided with they used the government to help. They helped the government arrest Geronimo Pratt.
That's crazy. I know you talk about Eugene Roberts. He was actually involved in the Panther 21 trial with Tupac mom, Afeni Shakur, successfully defending herself. I mean, read the law books and stuff like that, got off, and she was pregnant with Tupac at the time. And we see how this stuff continues to the present day. I just think as far as being activists now and organizers now, that we should learn from history, because y'all didn't know to the extent of the time that the government was involved and disrupting things.
Well, the thing is, Malcolm's organization wasn't a hard enough group where people would be respected by being activists.
Mm-hmm.
If you organize so that everybody that is in the organization is active in the organization, then you get more out of the spies than what the spies get out of you. And don't say anything.
Around, right? It might even have a change of heart, right?
And don't say anything about doing something illegal, because they'll do it for you and use your rhetoric to nail you.
You know what, something you just said, you made me think about, I was reading like the book that Fred Hampton lawyer Jeffrey Hollis, I interviewed him too back in December, wrote about Fred Hampton. They were talking about William O'Neill, who was his security guard, and also was an FBI agent or informant or provocateur. They were saying that he was the one that came up with all the crazy torture techniques, and Fred Hampton would say, no, we can't do that, brother. We can't be as worse or bad as the pig. We got to be better than them. But he would come up with all these ideas about robbing banks and torturing people all types of ways. But it's like when you hear Eugene Roberts or William O'Neill in their own words, they both had admiration for their quote-unquote target, whether it be Malcolm X or Chairman Fred Hampton. They found out that these folks were the real deal, that they had integrity, that they were very transparent, and that they were honest with their people that they were leading.
Yeah.
So they had a begrudgingly respect for them. But it's like, it's weird, though. It's like you setting this person up for the fall, but yet you respect this person at the same time. You admire this person. Like when I hear World War II pilots talking about how they took out Emerald Yamamoto, the guy who planted Pearl Harbor. They talk about years later when they read about him, and they're like, man, this man was great. They almost have like remorse for taking him out. It's like, we shouldn't take this guy out. This guy was remarkable. It's like Geronimo or something like that. Like, they worship who they destroy. If you type person that fight back or stand up against them, they'll respect you, but they'll kill you at the same time. But they'll make you live forever. They'll immortalize you on their own terms, though. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, then there's the other assassinations that continue to this day of Malcolm X.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You're talking about Dr. Marable's magna opus, as they say, the reinvention of Malcolm X.
The Life of Reinvention, Malcolm X by Manning Marable.
Yeah, let's talk about what you know about Dr. Marable.
He gives, a lot of information, which is true, but the main thrust is to put the blame on the government, on the Nation of Islam for the murder of Malcolm X, and the government having a passive role of allowing it to happen. Rather being the people who organized and orchestrated the assassination of Malcolm X. And he does so, see, he represents a tendency within the radical movement which reflects the opinions of the Communist Party.
Mm-hmm.
And, like in his book, he implies that the Communist Party wasn't hostile to Malcolm. They called him a black fascist, for Christ's sakes.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not remorseful at all when Malcolm X got assassinated. They had to change their tune because Ossie Davis was a favorite of theirs as far as an actor and everything else. Probably when Ossie Davis got up and said at Malcolm X's funeral that he was our prince, our black shining prince, and gave that eulogy to Malcolm, that cut across any attempt to discredit Malcolm in the black community. But he gives the impression that they were friendly towards Malcolm. He also says that Malcolm supported Barry Goldwater in 1964. But that was because Malcolm didn't support Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was a Dixiecrat.
Mm-hmm.
From Texas, from the South.
Right.
And that was the position, you're either, it's sort of like the slanders against Trotsky as being an agent of Hitler. And then, of course, when they had the Stalin Pact, Hitler Pact, then overnight Trotsky became an agent of the U.S. government. Then back again as an agent of Hitler when Hitler invaded the Soviet Union. Lies and lies, one lie after another. But his tendency was very hostile and didn't defend Malcolm X when he was alive, and also, they could have done a lot to counter the lies about Malcolm X. They didn't. And the lies continue. It's a very good, successful book. It goes into a lot of Malcolm's personal life and everything else, which is supposition, and you can't disprove a negative.
I would like to talk to you about that because, what's getting played in the book is not some of the things we talked about earlier in this conversation, but the people are more concerned about his sexuality, like that Marable.
Yeah, but you can't disprove.
Homosexual. Right.
If I say you're a homosexual, can you prove that you're not?
I mean, I'm alive. I could try to make an argument against it. I could make.
You would argue against it, but you says, well, you're a homosexual in the closet and you're a homophobe because of that.
Exactly. You can't win for losing. I know it's a losing argument.
You can't disprove a negative. But the best way is it's not important as far as who the man was.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you think sexuality determines the man.
Well, I think about what you say.
Or the human.
Well, you look at that, some of my most brilliant minds, I mean, you look at James Baldwin. I don't think about him being gay when I think about James Baldwin. I think about his brilliant, literary works, how he represented himself in terms of articulation of the ideas that he had and he espoused. Or even Bayard Rustin. I don't think about his homosexuality when I think about how great of a mass organizer he was in terms of the March on Washington and also working with people like A. Philip Randolph and Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah, but that's one problem with Manny Marable, and he reflects that tendency to downplay Malcolm as an importance as far as he denies the last year of Malcolm's life. Because there you can realize how the government had motive to kill him, rather than just the racism of JFK. I mean, of Herbert Hoover and COINTELPRO. The government, like Carl Levin's book, presents the motive for the assassination of Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to note that when King started talking against capitalism and the profit system, that's when he got, and the Vietnam War, that's when he got assassinated. They weren't socialists, but they were anti-capitalists at the time of their death.
So it was actually on their way.
Malcolm X, one of the famous quotes, not publicized too much, he said that racism exists because it's profitable. And in this country, if racism wasn't profitable, it wouldn't exist.
That's true. I mean, I look at capitalism, how we created capitalism in this country.
And, because, the Industrial Revolution was fueled by the slave trade and the raping of the colonies.
Exactly.
That's how they got the original wealth.
Yeah, slavery and genocide. That's the original sin. And but we look at America, people don't want to talk about that because people always talk about how great our country is. This is a great country made on a great sin. It was created by a great sin.
But it makes a lot of it seems like it's from the narrative. And he doesn't prove any points he makes. He says that Stokely Carmichael was, supported Malcolm X prior to his support with Bayard Rustin. Now, Bayard Rustin was a pacifist and so forth, and a social democrat. At that time, Stokely was at the Young People's Socialist Organization, YPSL. And in 1963, I was selling The Militant with an article about some of the positive things that the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X had done outside of a YPSL meeting. And Stokely Carmichael attacked me for supporting a racist like Malcolm.
Stokely Carmichael has to say that, but I heard a lot of stories about Stokely.
Yes, he did. he did.
Somebody do a book about him.
He changed a couple of years later.
Right, exactly. But you know what? But I'll tell you this though. That speaks to the legacy of Malcolm, because Malcolm had the ability to say, you know what, I did this wrong. I thought this way. I apologize. Let's go this way now. He showed that he was
I saw Carmichael, many years later, and and we laughed about it. But the other thing is, he says Carmichael was a Panther. Well, he negates the fact that the first Panthers was the Lowndes County Freedom Organization of Alabama, which used as their symbol the Panther for the elections.
Yeah, Stokely Carmichael was a part of that, right?
Right. And then the people in Oakland took their name after the Panthers, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization.
Right.
So there's a lot of factual stuff wrong in the book.
But that's what he also accused Alex Haley of doing as well. So everybody does. And also it's the editor, too, because, like the editor,
Now, also, just a simple thing, but it shows the sloppiness of Manny Marable. He called Bossy, the undercover agency of the police, Bossy. He calls him Boss.
But my thing is, he's been studying Malcolm X.
He calls the organization Boss, B-O-S-S, instead of Bossy. Not just once, twice, but throughout the whole final part.
Well, like the editor, I'm getting back to the editor when she was on NPR last week.
And he explains nothing about Malcolm's last year.
Nothing
about Vietnam, nothing about him, that he met with Cabrera and stuff like that.
He didn't say that in the
book.
It
was presumed they met, but he had talked with James Shabazz, and Shabazz had told me that they had met and had the cigar.
I know, man. Also, people forget that he met with Castro when he came to the Hotel Teresa in Harlem.
Yeah.
Malcolm. It's a picture of Malcolm, I think, Castro meeting at the Hotel Teresa.
Yeah. Fair Play for Cuba. Berta Green.
Okay.
when Malcolm was having trouble at a big downtown fancy hotel,
Mm-hmm.
Fair Play for Cuba arranged with Castro for him to stay at the Hotel Teresa.
Okay.
And that's where he stayed, and Malcolm X met him there. And that was a statement of Castro where he was comfortable speaking. Because you got to remember, most of Cuba is black.
Mm-hmm. You know, you talk about the meeting, like, so it will be that far. It will be that far of a stretch to say he also met with Che. It could be proven because he met with Castro a couple of years earlier, or several years earlier.
He met with Castro in 1960.
Right.
Malcolm X was a member of the Free Play for Cuba committee. Was on their mailing address.
And also, we got to say too,
starting in the 60s, he had a subscription to the Militant.
And also, we got to say the Fair Play for Cuba there, Lee Harvey Oswald was a member down south in New Orleans and stuff like that as well.
Well, that's another story, but I don't
think. But I'm saying, I'm trying to show all this, how this stuff is connected, though. So people try to say,
and other Patsy in a different assassination.
Yeah, but what I want to say is some of the same players in the same game. Like, you got some of the same people.
Yeah, well, Uslowitz from Boise at the time turned up as the bagman of Watergate. And Nixon advisor John Caulfield was the coordinator of all the spy agencies for Boise. All the spy agencies coordinated their activities through the CIA, the CID, Boise, and any other spy agency the government has.
Okay, well, I'll get back
We're all coordinated through Boise. So one person could have been CID or CIA who was an agent. So you got to say they were agents of the government. Whether they're directly for Boise or not is another question.
Yeah, I also mean, like, I think about the deathbed confession.
You know, because you have John Ali in the Nation of Islam close to Minister Muhammad, fanning the flames of discontent and meeting with Thayer before Malcolm X, just before Malcolm X got killed.
Yeah, I thought when he raised.
And then when he talks about the meeting of Malcolm X's assassination, he got it wrong too.
Well, I mean, basically what you say is that the same stuff that Dr. Marable accused Haley of doing was getting wrong. The facts that he also got it wrong in his own way as well. The facts of Malcolm's life, the timeline, the narrative.
Yeah, if he did that, I just got the book Friday, so I just looked through the last year of his life. But it doesn't mention Vietnam.
He made to Africa, right? He even talked about the 24-week trip he made to Africa, the one that people don't talk about, where he had the influence of the African states. I mean, like,
he had that about Africa, but not that was the first time after Malcolm went to Africa, he didn't point out that's the first time African states had spoken against racism in the United States.
But what he does, though, I would say that I haven't read the book. I want to read the book. I'm very excited to read the book. I had a chance to talk to Dr. Marable back in 2007, or July 2007. We talked for about an hour. And he said he was very sincere in his admiration for Brother Malcolm. Like, even as Elder said that he thought that Malcolm was the greatest, person produced in the 20th century in terms of African-American leader. He was the most fascinating figure from the 20th century. And that says a lot. He dedicated almost half of his life to the scholarship of Brother Malcolm X.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
and then he says, in living Black History, which he wrote, around the time you interviewed him, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
He supports Herbert Abthecker as a great historian, and Abthecker wrote a book about the 60s that he included Huey Newton, but he didn't include Malcolm X as a leader.
But like Huey Newton said, if it wasn't for Malcolm getting killed, there would be no Black Panther Party or John Malcolm.
But knowing where you come from, I'm sure he wouldn't know what to say to you.
But I'm saying, but Huey said that the reason why the Black Panther Party was founded was because of the assassination of Malcolm X. His wife actually went to the West Coast, and they were protecting him. Protected her, excuse me.
No, that's not true.
That in the Revolutionary
it was based on the Lowndes County Freedom Organization,
I'm not talking about. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but that was their inspiration for the Black Panther Party in Oakland.
I admit to that. I'm talking about also, what he was saying, what I'm saying, what he knew, I read Revolutionary Suicide, his autobiography. He was saying that if it was for Malcolm getting killed in New York in February 21st, 1965, that instead of them trying to form their own organization, they would have joined under Brother Malcolm X.
Oh, yeah, probably.
I mean, that's what he was saying. I'm not, you're right about what you said about Lowndes County. And I also was going to say that Betty Shabazz, when she went out to the West Coast after Malcolm died a little shortly after, that she was protected by the Black Panther Party, and she did feel very protected by them.
Yeah, so but the Panther Party wasn't formed until 1967.
It was October 66.
I mean, 1966, yeah.
Yeah, October, but it was 1967, but she didn't come out to the West Coast till around that time. You're right. But
that's a year and a half after Malcolm's assassination.
I want to ask you this, though. I want to get back to this William Bradley thing, because one thing that Dr. Marable's book does do is show, I mean, I know y'all did it a year earlier or so, but he did point a finger to William Bradley in Newark, New Jersey. And
the Nation of Islam. Right. And it was possible that he was a government agent. He was a suspected agent. You know.
But do you think he would help in the investigation into the reopening of the Malcolm X murder assassination case? Do you think Dr. Marable would have been a fierce advocate for that, or you think he was just an opportunist?
Well, he would have done it in his book, wouldn't he?
I was fascinated now since you told me history.
And this thing here, how come we should have all the files opened?
Right. Agreed.
And not some date when everybody's dead to refute them.
I mean, I wish I could have had both of y'all on my debating this. It would have been awesome. I would have paid money.
Oh, I would have loved to have gotten a hold of Manny Marm. I thought he was going to speak at the COPA meeting a year ago, February.
I know you spoke at there, yes. He did.
Yeah.
He
but he was invited, but then he didn't speak. So he knew who was speaking. He knew who he was speaking. I was hoping to have him there. I would have ripped him a butt, a new one.
Did he ever try to reach out to you? I mean, you are one of the last.
No, never. And I had sent him my essays on Malcolm X. And if you Google my name, Roland Sheppard, you can get all my essays.
Right.
Or if you even Google Malcolm X, you'll get me.
Exactly. I mean,
if you had the intellectual curiosity.
He just could have cited you. I mean, you already got the information out there. He just could went to the web and cited you if he was. I mean, I'm not. You got to be interested in reading the book, Brother Roland. I'm talking to you. You live in history. You was there. You actually know things. You got a photographic memory and stuff like that. But I'm just interested to see what he got wrong. Because he accused Alex Haley, if what you're saying is true about getting stuff wrong in the book, he accused Alex Haley of the same thing. That's why he was on this quest, this 25, 30-year journey to write this book about Malcolm, as far as my understanding was from him.
Well, his book is really basically, it has a few more facts and information. It's very dryly written because it's mainly the narrative. It's just somebody presenting a story.
But I'll tell you this, though.
It's not much different than Freely's book.
What's the name of Freely's book? What's the name of that book?
Yeah, I'll get it for you. Malcolm X, The Assassination by Michael Freely.
Yeah, it came out how long ago did that book surface or come
1991. That was the counter of the film.
So you saying that
there was two books. One by Bruce Perry, Malcolm X, The Life of a Man Who Changed Black America, and Malcolm X, The Assassination by Michael Freely. I write in my essay, in my opinion, we're a second assassination. And I think this book is a much more subtle assassination.
Wow. But, he said he talked to Louis Farrakhan, Mr. Louis Farrakhan, for 9 hours. And then, so you're saying in the book he's actually accusing the nation of masterminding the assassination of Malcolm?
I don't know. He lays out the case going on and everything going on inside the Nation of Islam to give the implication that the Nation of Islam were the murderers. Like they're the only ones with a motive. He doesn't present the motives of the United States. Because if he gave the motives of the United States, they would have to present Malcolm as a revolutionary.
But he did accuse the police precinct in New York. I mean, he did point the finger to the police, the NYPD, for allowing it to happen. Because you said that Donald Malcolm...
He doesn't mention that the police captured 2 people.
But he did, but the police had to issue a statement. The NYPD had to issue a statement that they were not involved. But he did mention something like you said, normally it'd be, two dozen police officers at a Malcolm X rally or speech, right? It'd be normally a lot of cops around, right?
Yeah, and he gave the same type reasons that Freely gives.
Okay.
And he quotes Herman Ferguson, saying there was only one guy caught he only saw one guy caught by the crowd. But it was 2 guys actually caught. You heard the bodyguards told you it was 2 guys. 2 guys they caught, right? Right.
And the newspapers printed something different,
right? Also, the newspaper articles and the police person in charge on newscape. Okay. And that's in my essay too. Mm-hmm. I have the photos of the International Herald Tribune, and also that news tape. And a police statement taken from a witness where they all talk about the second person being caught by the crowd.
Man, that's like, bro. I'm about to read this book. I know I got to read all the books you just told me and figure out what's going on. I got you. I mean, you live in history, and a lot of stuff you're saying sounds like it's the real deal, but I just don't understand why all this hoopla is about then if nothing new has been presented in terms of evidence. From a quote-unquote book, if the same stuff that they were saying back in 91 still rings true today with no new update, then something's wrong.
No, he updated a little bit about the trip in Africa.
That's an important trip, right. It needs to be talked about.
And so forth and so forth, but not the political consequences to the United States of this trip.
You know what? I'm going to tell you this, though. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to tell you why. I think what you say has merit to it. It needs to be looked at, but also just hearing his editor. And, it shows you the dumbing down of our society. Like when she was talking on NPR, she said, well, it was longer, but we had to cut it down because how many people know about, the so-and-so people of the civil rights movement or the zoot suits? How many people today know about what a zoot suit is? Man, basically, his editor left a lot on the chopping floor. I mean, he had a bigger book with a lot of stuff. He had meticulous details, according to her, about certain things and certain people and events, but they had to cut it out. And that's normal normally. When you're going through a big house publishing company like that, the trim, quote-unquote, set in their terms to get to the gist of what they want you to know. So basically, I mean, it got to be a fight between, it's a tug of war match between the writer and also the editor and the publishing house. So a lot of stuff might be, like even, for example, we talked about the several missing chapters from the original autobiography of Malcolm X. I had a chance to interview the attorney, Gregory Reed. He read some of the chapters on my show. And Manny Marable flew from New York to Detroit to try to see the missing chapters. But he only had less than 15 minutes to view all the things he wanted to view because the guy only gave him 15 minutes in the diner to look at what he wanted to look at. So it seemed like to me that he did have a passion to add something to the scholarship of Malcolm X. But maybe because you was actually there, you have a different point of view. And also he didn't include your point of view in that as well.
Yeah, but
it could have been better.
His politics.
Okay, tell me about his politics.
He was an Obama supporter. He was a supporter of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
He doesn't mention the Lowndes County Freedom Organization because that was an independent political organization that ran candidates against the Democratic Party.
Or maybe his editors left that out. I mean, because you can't mention that.
No. Because his politics are pro-Democratic Party.
I thought he was a socialist, though. I mean, was he a Democratic
The Communist Party and the Social Democratic Party supports the lesser evil politics. the Communist Party supported the no strike pledge and spoke against black workers from striking for equal rights during World War II. They did that at the Marin Shipyard because you had an A book and a B book for workers in the union. B book meant you paid the same dues, but you didn't have any rights. So then black workers who worked in the shipyards after the war didn't have a full book. They had no portability to get a job to leave the projects.
This is history that people don't know about, though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but that's his history. That's his tendency. And so what I'm saying, it flows from his politics.
Yeah, I wish I could have interviewed both of y'all to say.
He don't mention the Lowndes County Freedom Organization when he mentions Stokely Carmichael.
That's something. Well, what do you say about? Okay, I know we talked about. I'm interested in getting your opinion about Amiri Baraka because he, like you said, he was not a supporter of Malcolm while he was alive, but he supports him now, I guess. I mean, what's your take on Amiri Baraka, Leroy Jones? Your, person you know very well.
I knew him as Leroy Jones. He was in the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. But he didn't defend or speak out in support of Malcolm when Malcolm was alive. Now, everybody did when he was after he was assassinated.
That's just something, though. And they said, like, even you talked about the opinion of a lot of people that Malcolm wasn't an intellectual, although he was a favorite of Harvard students. And
that was the guy from Liberator magazine. They had a conference on the black intellectuals, and not one word about Malcolm X.
Wow, but now you think about intellectual prowess in terms of the black image. You think about Malcolm X.
You wouldn't know what Malcolm X stood for in his last life if it wasn't for the Socialist Workers' Party. We printed his speeches. We published his speeches.
Wow.
You wouldn't know what he was talking about at the time of his death.
So it was like a media blackout?
Now, yes, the Socialist Workers' Party makes money off his speeches. In those days, we gave the rights to the books to Grow Press because they could sell it cheaper and would have a mass distribution. Because that was the most important thing, wasn't making money, but to distribute what Malcolm X stood for so he couldn't be distorted. And a lot of people didn't read his speeches. A lot of people did. Now, in his book, Living Black History, he said that we distorted Malcolm X's speeches to our own benefit.
He said that he printed that verbatim, like y'all did it all.
He put that in writing. Hey, Malcolm X always saw. He didn't see the copy of his speech when he was in London because he didn't come back. But he always, when he spoke, and we printed his speeches when he was alive, we showed him the edited copy before it was published. He was able to see it. And the same thing when my brother interviewed him in the pamphlet Malcolm X Talks to Young People. My brother was an editor for The Militant at the time, and he edited the interview, which you do a tape and everything else, and he put the interview into English, and he liked the way it was edited. He says, you made it clearer, what I wanted to say.
Make it plain. Make it plain. I appreciate it.
But Manny Marable says we distorted what he stood for, which was an outright lie. But that's to deny the last year of his life. And this book is the final continuation, an ominous volume with titillating stuff, I guess, to some people, but trying to obscure the real effects of his last year, and doesn't even mention that they mentioned that he criticizes something about when Kennedy allowed, had the assassination of the guy in Vietnam.
Hey, the president, or what? I know you're talking about. I can't think of his name.
But he didn't come out and say Malcolm X opposed the war in Vietnam. He could have very easily found out that Malcolm X was more than likely to speak at the first demonstration against the war.
I mean, he not protested the UN at the killing of Patrice Lumumba, Prime Minister of Congo.
Also, he doesn't mention Malcolm X at 1199 in the organizing effort of Local 1199, where he came to the defense of the head of the union and spoke at the rally. And he told there was a meeting of black ministers to try to support the Local 1199, which was like similar to Memphis in a way, that was predominantly Puerto Rican and black workers organizing a union, but it was also like a civil rights demonstration. And Malcolm X spoke up at the meeting in Harlem, and you had all the people that the CP applauded up there, the famous different ministers and so forth. And he said, I don't care about the rest of you guys here. If you're not going to go, fine. As for me, I'm going down to that rally, and he's so-and-so is under attack by the man and in jail, and I'm going down me and my people are going down to the rally to speak against it. And that was when he was in the Nation. And Malcolm, as I write in my essay, gave the best speech at the rally.
All right.
And the white workers and the black workers applauded him.
Yeah, we needed him in Wisconsin and Ohio. And
oh, yeah.
That'd been awesome. That'd been a revolution going on right now. And that's why they had to get rid of him. They had to neutralize him. And I know that's why you laughing like that.
The bureaucracy labor bureaucracy would cringe, too, because they have agreed long before anything else. The labor bureaucracy had agreed to all the cuts. They just didn't want to cut. When they winced was when the governor moved to cut their income, the automatic dues check-off that goes with government contracts.
Let me ask you this then. Like, this is the thing. I know I had Cynthia McKinney on not too long ago. She talked about how, there's a lot of backlash if you criticize Obama publicly, especially from the black community. And, how we think Malcolm, I think Malcolm would not be silent, and he'll be very critical in his assessment of Obama's administration, where he stood in terms of what he was standing at in 65, like you said, his last year of his life. How do you sum up the Obama administration in your own view?
My own view? Obama can do, for a world image, what an ex-reprobate who could hardly articulate a sentence couldn't do, George Bush. Wall Street picked him as their change candidate. And he comes from the Daily Machine in Chicago.
Right. The same machine.
They made him a politician. They made him a senator. And that's how he came to prominence. And Daly, who also works for J.P. Morgan, Obama's administration, and so was Rahim, who went back to Chicago to become the new mayor.
Right.
It's all Chicago politics.
That's how they got Kennedy elected, though, back in '62. I mean, the Daily Machine is responsible also in a way for the death of Chairman Farrahampton Sr. So, I mean, Harold Washington, you know, his mysterious circumstances. But also, I like to say, to me, when I think about Barack Obama now, historically speaking, I'm always thinking about Woodrow Wilson in 1912, how so many of the black leaders in the black community spoke for Woodrow Wilson. He was an academic. He kind of got like a similar, you know, background as Obama, how he rose and stuff like that so quickly, and how he portrayed the trust of those people that voted for him in terms of he resegregated, you know, D.C., he vouched for the birth of a nation movement, which led to the rebirth of the KKK. He got us into like a lot of geopolitical mess in terms of looking at World War I and the aftermath, which led to World War II. And also he signed into law the Federal Reserve. And now you say Obama works for Wall Street. He works for the bankers. It was made by them. They wrote his check to the White House, and now they're cashing in them tips.
Let me just give you a quote from Woodrow Wilson in 1913. And you'll remember you had a mass socialist party at that time.
The Progressives out of Wisconsin.
And you had, Eugene V. Debs running for president.
Well, socialist. That wasn't you could be a socialist. You was an American hero back then.
Yeah. But Woodrow Wilson in 1913 said this. He was, pretty much he's to the left of Kucinich.
Right.
And his talking. If the government, this is what he said in 1913, if the government is to tell big businessmen how to run their business, then don't you see that big businessmen have to get closer to the government even than they are now? Don't you see that they must capture the government in order not to be restrained too much by it? Must capture the government, query.
That's how they did, the Federal Reserve.
They have already captured it. Woodrow Wilson.
It's prophetic, right? Because Obama fulfills that, his administration. I mean, look who's running the Treasury. I mean, Goldman Sachs, look at the Federal Reserve, look at World Bank.
But it's all a revolving door.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a white president could bomb Africa?
I mean, a white president gave him $18 billion, but he couldn't bomb him probably, not like Obama. The perfect candidate, right. But a lot of us, when I talk to my friends...
Need I say more?
No, I mean, when I talk to my friends, they look at me like I'm crazy. I'm just trying to help them out. I say, we can't afford another 4 years. We got to demand stuff from our president. He's not our president. He's their president. Like you said, he's the change agent.
He always was. He was their candidate.
Chris Gannard,
he was in their party. Who owns the party? Especially now. They really signed, sealed, and delivered it. Now the Supreme Court has unlimited funding.
Campaign song, right? That's so subliminal.
It's right out in the open. There is no democracy. You have a vote, but you don't have any choice of who gets voted for. That's all decided by money.
But if the people will ever wake up, and now's the time for us to wake up. I mean,
wake up before it's too late.
Yeah.
Fukushima could come here.
Yeah.
Well, I have to go now.
It's always an honor
Good talking to you again, Ron, as always.
Brother Roland, it's an honor, man. I really appreciate you and respect you so much. You just don't have any idea. I'm going to really enjoy talking to you. But, yeah, I'm going to put this out there because this needs to be out there, and we're going to see what people say.
Okay.
God bless you. Oh, I know you don't believe in God, but bless you.
All right.
All right.
Okay, be good.
All right.